Hi, I'm Andrew. I run an automation agency called Two Cores, and today I'm going to talk through a recent automation we built for a client that takes information booked in through Acuity Scheduling, which as you can see is a module in Make, and takes it through and puts in meetings in HubSpot that is linked to both the correct contact as mapped by their email and also to the contact owner or the deal owner as mapped in HubSpot. This project had two different steps. One, they'd been using Acuity for the last 2 years. So we built an automation that looks at all of the past meetings and maps them into HubSpot in a retroactive view. And then we've scheduled one that is ACID or scheduled immediately when a new meeting is booked into Acuity and puts that into the relevant contact in HubSpot. Before, these two systems weren't linked, they weren't talking to each other. So to see the last time someone had come in, you would have to go into Acuity, check it out, go into HubSpot, check it out, and then link the two records. It turned out to be quite a complex build, but the way that we built it was through a series of steps. The first is obviously an Acuity. It's triggered as and when this information comes through. So when a meeting is scheduled, it pulls the information. It waits for 30 seconds just because there's another process working in a different automation that is creating the contact. So we basically needed to wait for 30 seconds because this automation is built on looking up an email by an ID in HubSpot. So if it didn't exist already, it would time out, which is why we have this little sleep delay. We then, by email, we look in HubSpot and search for the relevant contact via their email here and return it so we know which person has booked in the meeting. And as I said, every time a previous person within this company had built the Zap that moves or creates a contact based on the Acuity. So we know that that's going to happen. So we search by email, we get their email details back. If the email doesn't exist, we throw an error. It always should, but we throw an error in there and it adds a row in a Google Sheet just in case. But the sleep has taken care of most of the issues in terms of the contact not existing. So next we come into HubSpot. We get a contact based on their email and comes from here, from their contacts. We get their contact ID. It then lists the owners of that contact. It should just be one, but multiple people could own that contact in HubSpot. So we list 20. Come back, build an array of the number of or the information that we need for the next step. Turns it into a string here with a text aggregator. That's then parsed into JSON through the same structure that we have in the text aggregator. That then pulls it through and starts to set multiple variables based on what's coming through Acuity. One of the things we found in HubSpot is that the date starts in 1st of January 1970. So every date that you put into HubSpot needs to be calculated from 1st of January 1970 plus however many days there are. So this actually turned out to be quite a complicated variable, but the owner ID is mapped, activity date, and the owner ID and name. So there's all the information that needs to be mapped. We then come in to HubSpot, and based on the ID of both the person who's booked in Acuity and the owner in HubSpot, we map out these details that we've created as multiple variables in the time before. We believed that this was going to be fairly straightforward to map it across, but the date and time issues plus the delays caused a little bit of extra time that this took to make. But now every time someone books in Acuity, and obviously every time someone books in Acuity, it's immediately mapped to HubSpot. Any questions, let me know in the comments.